Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Analytics in the absence of Mr. Anwar, who is unable to be here today due to other business. It is 9:09 a.m. and I'd like to call the January 22nd, 2025 Committee on Innovation, Idea, and Educational Analytics meeting to order. This meeting is being held via live broadcast. Before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome those joining us via video conference and ask that you observe the following etiquette. Please state your name before you speak, mute your microphone when not speaking, and keep background noise to a minimum. Members, when I call your name, please announce present. Stacy Hawk, Vice Chair, present. Javed Anwar, Chair, absent. Richard Clemmer.
Present.
Fred Frias.
Present.
Juan Navarez.
Present.
Welcome Wilson.
Present.
Daniel Wong. And Luke Schwartz.
Present.
Please record in the minutes that we have a quorum. I would now like to invite Chairman Frias to make opening remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk, and good morning, members, higher education leaders, and stakeholders joining us today. Honored to be here and excited to engage in this important discussion impacting higher education. While the formal introduction of our new Commissioner of Higher Education, Dr. Win Rosser, will take place at tomorrow's board meeting, I'd like to take a moment to welcome him today. Welcome, Commissioner. Dr. Rosser is the 7th Commissioner of the Coordinating Board and brings more than 30 years of experience to higher education policy, leadership, and advocacy. On behalf of the board, I can confidently say that we are excited to have Dr. Rosser on board. We trust that he will collaborate closely with policymakers, institutional leaders, philanthropy advocates, and agency staff to advance higher education and build a talent-strong Texas. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Rosser. Commissioner, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. It's been a fast 3 weeks. I'm looking forward to today and engaging in productive conversations and looking forward to tomorrow as well. So appreciate the warm welcome. It's been a great opportunity to get to know the staff here and to start making visits over into the Capitol. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you, Chairman Frias and Commissioner Rosser. Agenda item 2 is consideration and possible action to approve the minutes from October 23rd, 2024 committee meeting. Members, do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Navarez and second by Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 3 is public testimony on agenda items relating to the Committee on Innovation, Data, and Educational Analytics. We do not have anyone registered to testify, so we will go to the next item. Agenda item 4 is consideration and possible action to approve the consent calendar. The consent calendar includes items that can be approved without comment or discussion. This allows us to save time for other items that need more of our attention. The consent items are highlighted items in gray on the agenda. Any board member can request that an agenda item be added to or removed from the consent calendar. Members, the following rule items are on the consent calendar for consideration. These rules are either technical, conforming, or implement non-controversial policies around which there is consensus. 5D1, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed repeal of board rules, Chapter 1, Subchapter BB, concerning the Texas application for State Financial Aid Advisory Committee. 5D2, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed repeal of board rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter A, Section 22(7), concerning the dissemination of information and rules. 5D3, consideration and possible action to adopt the recommendation relating to the four-year review of board rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter F, Sections 22-112 through 22-115, concerning matching scholarships to retain students in Texas. 5D4, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to board rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter F, Sections 22-113 through 115, concerning the matching scholarships to retain students in Texas. 5D5, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to board rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter G, Sections 22-128 through 131, and 133 and 135, concerning the Texas College Work-Study Program. 5D6, consideration and possible action to adopt the recommendation relating to the four-year review of Board Rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter 1, Sections 22-163 through 174, concerning Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. 5D8, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter K, Sections 22-201 through 210, concerning the Texas Transfer Grant Program. Does anyone want to remove any items from the consent calendar? And are there any items that anyone would like to add to the consent calendar? Members, is there a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Ms. Wilson. Thank you, Chairman Frias. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5A is Building a Talent Strong Texas Data Insight, Enrollment and Graduation Trends. Dr. Melissa Humphreys, Assistant Commissioner for Data Management and Research, will provide a brief presentation and be available to answer questions. This is for information only.
Good morning, committee members. I'm Melissa Humphreys. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Data Management and Research. Meeting the educated population and credential value goals within our Talent Strong Texas plan will require a combination of increasing higher ed enrollments and improving completion rates. Today, I'll be presenting the latest enrollment, completion, and graduation trends using our most recent certified data from our higher ed institutions. Next slide, please. Before we dive in, I'll call out a few highlights that we see from the data. First, both freshman enrollment and dual credit enrollment increased in fall 2024 as compared to fall 2023. Next, the completion data shows that public institutions awarded over 319,000 degrees and certs in 2024. And finally, we are seeing a steady increase in graduation rates at both public universities and community, state, and technical colleges. Next slide, please. We'll start by looking at fall enrollment trends. During our last committee meeting, we discussed preliminary enrollment findings. However, now we have fully certified data, so we're able to look at a few more detailed trends. Next slide, please. So this is a repeat slide from our last presentation about preliminary enrollment, but now we've filled in the numbers with the certified data. As expected, there were no major changes between the preliminary numbers and what ultimately came in on the certified data. Statewide, enrollments increased by 3.3% from fall 23 to fall 24, which is about 50,500 students. We see the greatest fall enrollment increase at public two-year institutions as compared to last year, an increase of about 5%. Just to note, the remainder of our discussion will focus on findings at public institutions. Even though this slide shows statewide enrollment, we're going to shift to focus on the public institutions. Next slide, please. All right. This slide shows trends in first-time freshman enrollment at public universities and public two-year colleges. Enrollment of first-time freshman students has steadily increased over the past 5 years statewide, which matches national trends. In 2024, about 220,000 undergrad students were enrolling at a public institution as a first-time freshman student. And as is noted here, you can see the breakdown of freshmen enrolled at public 2 years and public universities. About 56% of these freshman students in 2024 were enrolled at public 2-year institutions. Next slide, please. We also wanted to consider trends in dual credit enrollment, especially considering new funding opportunities for these students. In fall 2024, there were about 249,000 dual credit students enrolled at public colleges and universities in Texas. The vast majority of dual credit enrollments are at community colleges. As you can see here, in 2024, about 90% of all dual credit enrollments were at community colleges. I did want to note we are tracking how our new programs such as FAST funding and community college outcome funding may increase dual credit enrollment. It's a little too soon to tell. We need probably 2 years of information to see if this is affecting the rate of change. But just as context, in 2023, about half of the dual credit students noted here were FAST funded. We expect that to increase based on the data we've seen so far in 2020 for fall 2024 FAST. I will also note that from 2023 to 2024, we saw a 14% increase in dual credit enrollment, which is a much higher increase than we've seen across the past 7 or 8 years.
Quick question of clarification. So the 250,000 in dual credit enrollment are included in the 730,000 total enrolled into your public colleges?
Correct. They would not be considered part of the freshman cohort, but they are considered in the total enrollment at community colleges, and then a few at universities too. Next slide, please. So at the end of the fall semester, we also get certified data about degrees awarded for the prior academic year. So we just received information on these degrees for 2024. The next few slides will review undergraduate and graduate degrees awarded by public institutions. Note today I'm focusing on certificates through doctoral degrees. This doesn't include many of the new workforce certificates that are part of the community college funding, such as occupational skills awards or institutional credentials. Next slide, please. This graph shows the breakout of certificates, which includes level 1 through level 3 certificates, associate and bachelor's degrees by type of awarding institution. Starting at certificates, all of the about almost 47,000 certificates awarded last year were awarded at community, state, and technical colleges. Almost all associate's degrees were awarded by community colleges as well. It's hard to see in this graph, but there are a few awarded at universities, very small number, under 30, and under 200 at HRIs. And then finally, the vast majority of bachelor's degrees awarded last year were at universities, but also there's a small number at community colleges and HRIs. Next slide, please. This slide shows graduate degrees awarded by public institution type. As expected, the majority of master's degrees are awarded at universities. However, HRIs do contribute some to that, and research doctorates, but the slight majority of professional practice doctorates are awarded by public HRIs in the state. Next slide, please. Since we have degree attainment data for 2024, we were also able to start to calculate the most recent graduation rate trends for public institutions. The following data show graduation rates over the last 5 years for public universities and public community, state, and technical colleges. Next slide, please. First, we'll focus on 4- and 6-year graduation rates at Texas public universities. To calculate these rates, we start with a cohort of first-time, full-time entering students at universities and track them over the specified number of years. If they receive a bachelor's degree at their starting university or at another institution in Texas, they are considered a graduate. Although the 6-year graduation rate top line has slightly increased since 2020, it really has hovered around 66% over the past 4 years. The 4-year graduation rate for universities has increased at a slightly higher rate over the past 4 years, with the most recent 4-year grad rate at universities being 45.2%. Focusing on the shorter time frame for graduation is important because our data also show that on average, students that complete sooner have accumulated less student debt, less excess credit hours, and they're also able to join the workforce sooner. Next slide, please. For community, state, and technical colleges, we're showing 3- and 6-year graduation rates. To calculate these rates, we start with a cohort, again, of first-time, full-time entering students at community, state, and technical colleges and track them over the specified number of years. If they receive a certificate or associate's degree at their starting institution or another institution in Texas, they are considered a graduate. Some community colleges do offer bachelor's degrees, but as we showed in our prior slides, this is a very small number, so only about 1% of all degrees awarded at community colleges are bachelor's degrees. So the majority of these graduations are for certificates and associate's degrees.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
So on the previous slide, do you know the top percentage? It was 66%. Yes, 3 on the 4-year public universities. Do you know the top university? Is it in the 70 percentage rate or higher? Or do you know?
I think it is in the 70s. The top
Sorry?
highest graduation rate of all the universities.
I think I might know, but I'm not sure. But my point being, it's not the specific number, but we should probably look at best practices to see what those top universities are doing to share the data with those that are in the lower percentage rate, because I know that's an area that I know we need to improve, exactly for the reason you said about financial aid and the longer to completion. So I think
Yeah, absolutely.
we would share that information with those that are more successful.
And happy to provide you also with a breakout of the grad rates.
That would be great. Thank you.
I have a quick question, Melissa. I thought I heard you say that these are graduation rates for people that start and finish in state universities.
Correct.
Is that correct? So not on this chart are people that may transfer to an out-of-state university and graduate on time or within 6 years.
Correct.
And is there a way to track that from the data? Because that they are graduating, they're starting here, they're just not graduating here. Is there any way to track that nationally?
Yes, that's a really good question. And it's something we're working on now is working on our contract with National Student Clearinghouse to get more data about the students who are from Texas. And that's something we hope to be able to add.
Yeah, because I know one of our goals is to figure out how to track Texas students throughout their higher ed path and where they go and why they stay, and so that we can come up with some best practices. So I would encourage the commissioner to pursue those engagements so that we have that data, because we're great at tracking data and it'd be great to have that, I would think.
Thank you. That's a good question.
Members, any other questions? Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Agenda item 5B is consideration and possible action to adopt the recommendation relating to the certification of gifts that are fundable through the Texas Research Incentive Program for emerging research universities. Mr. Andy McLaurin, Assistant Commissioner for Funding, will present this item and be available to answer questions. It is for information only.
Good morning, committee members. I'm Andy McLaurin, Assistant Commissioner for Funding and Resource Planning. Today, I'm presenting the gifts recommended for certification by the board for the purpose of the Texas Research Incentive Program, or TRIP. First slide, please. Texas Research Incentive Program was established by the legislature in 2009 to encourage universities to seek private donations to support research initiatives. Through this program, the state provides matching funds based on a tiered system where the match percentage increases with larger gifts, beginning at a minimum donation of $100,000 and capping at $10 million. The 8 eligible and participating universities are listed on the right-hand side of this slide. Next slide, please. Since its inception, institutions have received over $1 billion in gifts, resulting in approximately $828.7 million of gifts being eligible for state matching funds. The chart on the right highlights the legislature's substantial commitment to this program. Although funding levels have remained steady, have varied by year, the legislature has so far funded $427.7 million in eligible matches, leaving an unfunded balance of approximately $400.9 million awaiting future appropriations. While legislative funding for TRIP has remained level in recent years, gifts have continued to grow, outpacing available state funds. To help close the gap, the coordinating board has submitted an exceptional item request asking the legislature to consider fully funding all certified but unfunded state matches. Next slide, please. This last slide provides university-level information on the gifts received and the amounts eligible for state matching funds in the first of the 2 review cycles of 2025. On the lower right corner of this slide, you can see the total amount recommended for certification by the board. $18.6 million is the total request. That concludes my presentation on TRIP, and I can address any questions you might have.
Yes, good morning. Just out of curiosity, what happened in 2016? That was an incredible year of funding.
Yes, we did have an exceptional item request. It was not for that full amount, but my assumption is that there was some surplus in the state budget, and the legislature chose to use it for that purpose. Similar to this session where we have a surplus, we've got an exceptional item request.
So to me, it makes sense that if the universities have done their part and are entitled to a match, it makes sense the legislature would add an exceptional item to match it, because all we're doing is holding back the universities and the student progress by not doing it when we're able to afford it, I would think. So do we have somebody, I assume we have a whole team working on that with detail, et cetera, Chairman?
So there we go. Sorry, offline. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing, it's a legislative thing, and so we're
Right.
And
But it makes common sense to me that we have a program, the universities did their part.
Right.
It seemed like an easy ask to me, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of asks, but you're exactly right. It's a priority.
Members, any other questions? Do I have a motion to adopt the recommendation relating to the certification of gifts that are fundable through the TRIP program for emerging research universities?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Clemmer and Mr. Wilson. Members, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5C is the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5C is the report on Financial Aid Advisory Committee activities. Ms. Cecilia Jones, Chair, and Ms. Malay Leafgreen, past Chair of the Financial Aid Advisory Committee, will present this item and be available to answer questions. This item is for information only.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Cecilia Jones. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at Jarvis Christian University. It's a small, private, historically Black university in rural Hawkins, Texas, just in case you didn't know where that is.
Thank you.
The past chair couldn't make it, so I'm going to give the report for us. The FAAC annual report is compiled every year and summarizes all of the good we've done for the past year, which was 23-24. and all that we've accomplished and has been or will share with you. We met 4 times, all virtually. And because the meetings were virtual, there was no actual expenses, but we had a total of 412 time commitment hours. The FAAC is important as it provides the coordinating board advice and recommendations regarding the development, implementation, and evaluation of state financial aid programs for our students. It gives feedback on legislative issues, insight on state financial aid programs, policies, and procedures. We recommend that the board continues to work with the FAAC to provide feedback and recommendations on current and new initiatives, to provide feedback on how the state financial aid programs, rules, policies, and regulations align with federal policies. Continue to work with subcommittees as well. There is a list of discussion topics and presentations that were given over the past year in the report that was given to you all earlier. But I would like to thank the members of the coordinating board that works with us, especially Ms. Leah Smiley and our past chair, Millette Leafring, for selecting topics and discussions and presentations that were of interest to us. They were all topics necessary for our community. For example, we discussed common challenges with the new FAFSA when it was introduced, and guidance on the cost of attendance given the new student aid index and the effect also that it will have on the TASFA application. A second topic was the need for a change in the financial aid priority deadline because of the lateness of the availability of the FAFSA. So we had that discussion and received a later priority deadline to coincide with the lateness of the FAFSA. A couple of presentations that were also valuable was the demonstration of the online TASFA application, which provided us instruction on how to import our applications from the state. Another was a review of the coordinating board loan repayment programs, of which we were reminded of. Further, FAC has subcommittees that remain active in engaging the coordinating board with the creation and implementation of agency initiatives and policies to push the agency forward. This is important because every 4 years, the coordinating board reviews the necessity of continuing this committee. The annual reports are used to help make the decision. The committee's proposed next abolishment is October 2025. It is the committee's and my hope that you realize the value of continuing this committee. We represent the heart and voice of the Financial Aid Committee, and during this time of legislative change, we need the connection with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Thank you for joining us this morning and for the report. Agenda items 5D 1 through 9 are the proposed rules. Agenda items 5D 1 through 6 were approved on consent. Agenda items 5D 7 is consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to board rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter 1, Sections 22-163 through 168 and 22-170, and new Section 22-169 concerning the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. Members, you have supplemental materials for this item printed on goldenrod paper. Dr. Quintero-Pols will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Thank you. I'm pleased to present the proposed rules for Chapter 22, Subchapter I relating to the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program. The proposed rule changes are primarily non-substantive, part of the Student Financial Aid Program Division's effort to improve the overall consistency and readability of its rules, along with ensuring they are fully aligned with statute and practice. This includes, for example, ensuring the citations to other rules and statutes are consistent, and that terms that have a formal definition in rule are used correctly within the rule text. The proposed rules were developed concurrently with the 4-year rule review for this subchapter, which is included on the agenda as a separate item in the consent calendar section. After receiving a public comment from Texas A&M, we are including one substantive change to the rules for the program that was not included in the proposed rules published in the Texas Register. Rule 22.169, relating to discontinuation of eligibility, includes a limitation on the number of years during which a student may receive a scholarship based on the student's degree program. Historically, this limit has been 4 years for students in a 4-year degree program, or 5 years for those enrolled in degree programs of more than 4 years. ROTC students often have course requirements that are not included in their degree plan, which can make graduating within the current limits challenging. Accordingly, the proposed rule changes the limit to 6 years, regardless of the length of the student's degree program. This aligns with the program's statutory requirement to graduate within 6 years of entering higher education. This change would not affect any other eligibility provisions, but it should provide scholarship recipients with greater flexibility to meet their academic and ROTC requirements without financial disruption. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Members, does anyone have any questions?
So I have a question. So what's happening to those people that don't graduate right now? What happens if they don't graduate within the 4 years? Are they losing the scholarship?
They are limited to 4 years of receipt. And so if they're continuing on into a 5th year or a 6th year, they wouldn't be eligible for the scholarship in that 5th or 6th year based on the current rules.
Okay.
Under the new rules, they would be able to continue receiving it.
Thank you.
Members, is there a motion to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter T, Sections 22-550, 552, 553, and 555 concerning the Texas First Scholarship? Wait a minute. I'm so sorry. I jumped right ahead. I'm like, that's not what we're covering. Up here. Is there a motion to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter 1, Sections 22-163 through 168, 170, and new Section 22-169 concerning the Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program?
So move.
I have a motion made by Mr. Navarez.
Second.
Second. Was that welcome, Mr. Wilson?
I think it may have been 2 of us,
Or-
but I'll
okay.
take it.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda items 5D8 was approved on consent. Agenda item 5D9 is consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter T, Sections 22-550, 552, 553, and 555 concerning the Texas First Scholarship. Dr. Quintero-Poles will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Thank you. I'm pleased to present the proposed rules for Chapter 22, Subchapter T, relating to the Texas First Scholarship. The proposed rules make non-substantive changes to the subchapter as part of Student Financial Aid Program's ongoing effort to improve the clarity and readability of its rules. We did receive a public comment from Austin Community College questioning the lack of a reference to completing the FAFSA or TASFA form. In our response to this comment, we clarify that the reference to the need to file a FAFSA or TASFA is covered by the portion of the proposed rule which states that a student must meet the graduation requirement related to financial aid application as described by Texas Education Code Section 28.0256. As such, no change to the proposed rules was made. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Members, any questions? Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt proposed amendments? Are there proposed amendments? Okay. To Board Rules, Chapter 22, Subchapter T, Sections 22-550, 552, 553, and 555 concerning the Texas First Scholarship.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Navarez.
Second.
Second by Chairman Frias. Any discussion? Those in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 6 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion made by Mr. Wilson and a second.
Second.
Mr. Navarez, members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned. We will now take a short break to allow staff to set up for the Committee on Academic Work and Workforce Success meeting.